Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. Today, we're going to go talk to Mr. Robert Woods, who is the product manager for Seviin Reels, created by St.Croix rods. Seviin Reels have been around a couple years now, pretty new. They're awesome. I've been using them for a few years. Rob's going to give us a little bit of the breakdown on what goes into it, the innovation with the rods and the reels. And we're going to talk a little bit about Lake Winnebago fishing because he was happened to be there today. So one of my favorite places to fish as well. So stay tuned and hear about Seviin Reels from the product manager, Robert Woods, right after this message from Seviin Reels. Whatever your skill or experience level is as an angler, you deserve a fishing reel that contributes to your success and satisfaction on the water and never detracts from it. From the makers of St. Croix rods, Seviin Reels, spelled Seviin, is born of 7 decades of design and manufacturing expertise, industry-leading angler support, and the American family ownership dating back to 1977. Seviin Reels are designed and crafted for high performance and unrelenting reliability. Verified at least 16 different ways by extreme torture testing at Seviin's one-of-a-kind Park Falls, Wisconsin laboratory. Seviin Reels are also proven on the water by the most demanding professional guides and tournament anglers. So by the time a Seviin reaches your hands, it's ready for anything you throw at it. Guaranteed by the best and easiest warranty in the industry. Disappointment happens, but there should never come as a result of your reel. Seviin Reels are tested, proven, and guaranteed to be the most reliable on the planet. Check out the entire lineup at seviinreels.com. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. Today, we're going to talk about the newest Craven Fishing and Seviin Fishing Reels by St. Croix. We got the product manager, Robert Woods, with us today from St. Croix and Seviin Reels. Rob, you look like you're sitting at a lake house or something with them big lures on the back, on the wall behind you there.
Yeah, actually, we had a family function down back where I'm from here, so I'm at my parents' house, believe it or not. So, yeah, we're sitting right on the shores of Lake Winnebago right now on the southwest corner. So,
ooh, that's one of is that Black Hawk? What is that boat ramp down there? Blackbeard.
We're just south. We're just south of gosh, it's been 5 years since I've been there. Yeah,
I know I use that one a lot.
We're about 4 or 5 miles south.
All righty,
4 miles.
One of my favorite places is Lake Winnebago, we're going to touch on that here in just a little bit since it's kind of your home water. For those listening, Robert, just go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what your role is, and what you do, and a little background.
Yeah, so I'm a product manager. I've been a product manager my entire professional career. I actually came from the automotive industry. I worked for a company. We did automotive electronic components. And then that evolved into a short stint with NGK spark plugs, actually, before I got the call from St. Croix about this opportunity 4 years ago now, I believe it's been. So my entire professional career has been pretty awesome because I've talked about cars and fishing. So I can't complain there. It's kind of the dream when you're the little kid, like, oh, I got a sweet truck to pull my boat to go fishing, and I've talked about all of it since then. Right. So it's pretty good. With St. Croix, growing up in Wisconsin and having a cabin up in Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin, an hour and 20 minutes from the St. Croix factory. Like, I remember my dad getting his first Premier muskie rod. I was probably like 10 years old, and that was a big deal. And then, there I go, get into college. I start buying my stuff.
Right.
Buy a brand new boat in college because I'm not financially responsible. And here
None
we are.
None of us are. Yep.
At the end of the day, it worked out okay, and now I'm getting to live out my dream and make a career of it. And to me, like, when I see a rod and a reel on the deck, and I know I was a part of it, and somebody might catch their PB, like, that is so awesome. I mean, I got a little son right now, and every fish he catches is a PB at this point for him. Right. And and he's using something that I had a hand in developing with the entire rest of the team. Like, that is so cool. That is just awesome.
It is. St. Croix is definitely, you know, it's what, 76 years now, family
Yeah.
owned. And I mean, the Schluters have kind of, you know, moved on, but it's still, it's a, when you, whether you work there or you buy a rod or reel from them, you're just part of that family now. And you said it was a big deal when your dad bought that first Premier muskie rod, you know, years ago. But you got 28 sets of hands that touch every rod, I think.
Yeah, 32.
Or 32. It's a lot. That's a lot of
Yeah.
hands. So those
Yeah.
are individual people living in Wisconsin with American-made rods. So no tariff issues here. You know, coming out of American folks making American rods, coming out to the American anglers and all over the world necessarily, but they're awesome, and there's no doubt that it's you get a St. Croix rod and even a 7 reel now, you're joining the St. Croix family, and it's a long tradition of quality and, you know, and sensitivity with the rods, backed by warranty like crazy. The reels are the same, and that's, you know, it's hard not to talk about St. Croix when you're talking about 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that journey too. I mean, really, for my first 3 interviews there, I didn't know really what they were doing. And I met with the product manager for St. Croix Rod, and I'm like, you know, I know they're big. It seems like they should probably have, you know, more than one. Well, it turns out I wasn't meeting the whole team, because for first 3 interviews, I thought I was going for rod stuff. I'm like, you know, then finally it came out, and I'm like, well, that makes sense. And that was the question that Scott Forrestal, our CEO,
Yep.
brought to the team prior to my arrival was, we've been doing this for, at the time, you know, 72 years or whatever it was when they came up with the idea that maybe we should get into reels. And the team unanimously, and the Schluter family said yes. And Brian, you've been with St. Croix long enough. You remember when they did kind of private label reels.
Yep.
They were like, you know, it was just a sticker on a reel. This is entirely different. And that's the approach that they brought to me was, you know, we had reels, but we had no plan around it. We had no input into the design, the development, really the internal specs. We just bought some reels, slapped a sticker on it. This is so much more than that. And once we got into it, we realized how much more there was to it. I mean,
A lot more than a slap and a sticker on it. So.
Yeah. So with 7, you know, we had these conversations back and forth, and we were just like, okay, we need to be different. We know there's some really good reels out there, some really great companies, some long-standing, lots of history.
Yep.
So we can't call them St. Croix reels, because they're, you know, that would be disingenuous, is the term that we like to use, to call them the best reels on earth, when we know there's some really good reel brands out there. And so we came up with 7, working with our marketing group at the time. Was we're going through all these iterations and different names, and then 7 hit, and it's like, okay, we had 7 decades of St. Croix rods. You know, there's 7 seas, 7 days in a week. We want to fish every single one of them. You know, the Schluter family took over St. Croix in 1977. Like, it all was just
Makes sense.
mining. Yeah,
Right.
it worked. And when you can tell that story, it's cool, because, you know, ideally we're here for another 70 years with 7 reels. And that's the tact we took. Also works as a branding mark, you know, the VII and the different spelling, that works really well on a small little reel component. So all those things came in, and ultimately we're really happy with where we ended up. So,
hey folks, I want to tell you about this new line that Seaguar introduced this year. It's been on the market for a couple years, but it's been over in Japan. They just brought it over to the United States this year, and I absolutely love it. It's called PEX8. This is by far the thinnest diameter braid I have ever used. This is still an 8-strand braided line with such a thin diameter. It's unbelievable. I'm using an 18-pound test today, and it feels like 2-pound. You know, the advantages to this thin diameter is, if it's windy out, I'm not catching much wind, I get less bow in the line. High pressure situations where the fish are, you know, taking on a lot of fishing pressure, a thinner diameter line, less visible, of course. Current in the rivers, I'm going to cut the current a little better. I'm going to get better control, you know, and they did all this without losing any of its strength. This stuff is still strong as all the Seaguar braided lines, and the sensitivity is second to none. So check this out. This is PEX8 over at seagar.com.
Yeah, that was pretty good play on the words with the 7, and I love that when I talk about it. The 7 days a week, the 7 seas, the 7 citrus. It's just when things just make sense and are meant to be, they're meant to, everything aligns and it works out real well. So
Yep.
it is so we got, so 7's out there. This is a GX. We have the GS, the GF, I believe just came out this year, right? And then we have the GSW, or what's the saltwater one?
Yeah, the saltwater. Yep.
As well as a couple of bait cast models, correct?
Yep. We've got 2 bait cast models. Then we have our combo reels and rods as well. So this past year, we made a push. St. Croix is really, really good at making a rod for everything. Everything, any tactic you want to use, like, we've got it. And with we call it GXR bass. What we did is we just simplified for the angler, the bass angler. Like, okay, we looked at like the top 4 or 5 techniques that are being used nationwide, and we gave them a length, power, and action and the perfect reel, and we labeled it as such. This is your all-purpose rod. If you want to pick up, a Senko, do it with this. If you want to put on an Ed rig, do it with this. And then we have, like a finesse for the drop shot type people, the guys pinging them in, all that sort of thing. But we made it really simple, kept it to, I think we got 5 SKUs in that lineup, and it is taken off. Like, there's no more questions on what should I pair. Like, we gave them the best all around. We gave them a 3,000 size spinning reel and a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio bait cast model. And we made them 2-piece too. Like, there's kayak anglers out there. There's the urban angler fishing ponds, throwing it in a backpack, riding his bike there. So folding handles, that sort of thing. We're really trying to, with that series, make it simpler for that younger angler, that up and coming angler, or even a parent who wants their kid to have nice equipment. I mean, your day on the water is a lot better when you're fishing with quality equipment that you can trust. That's what we did there. And I kind of went GXR right away because you might see a line extension coming up here in July that's going to get launched that kind of plays in our realm a little bit more, Brian. So
we have iCast coming up. So
yeah. So there's some cool things coming out there between St. Croix and 7, another collaboration. So.
Well, it makes sense because you've always had some combos and ice fishing combos and panfish combos, but like you said, it was a hodgepodge of reels. Sometimes we're Daiwa, sometimes we're slap sticker on, whatever. And, and people think of combo, they usually just think of discounted or just buying something cheaper for the first time or a beginner. Let me just go get this set up. Well, St. Croix rods always have not just the action length and, listed on it, but the technique specific. This is a drop shot rod. This is a power swim jig rod, whatever. This is a cranking rod. This is, a blendy rig, whatever the case is. They're all listed, so it makes it easier for the guy that, or gal is kind of, I don't know if this is what it is, a snap jig rod. The rod tells you this is a technique you want. Here you go. Not to say you can't use it for other things. So to pair that up with the right, basically the reel that goes with it, it doesn't mean it's the cheap beginner kit thing. It's a great for a beginner kit because, like I said, if you have good equipment, you're just going to enjoy everything on the water better. You're not buying the old Zepco or whatever it is and making a cast with something that doesn't balance well, and then you're going to have backlashes and just a mess because you're throwing an 1/8 ounce thing on something that should be running a 1 ounce spinner bait on it or whatever the case is, and it doesn't work. So you have it all set up. So if you are new or getting into it, it obviously pays to invest a little bit in good equipment. I get it if you're just trying something out, but there's programs out there. There's guide programs. You can borrow a rod, you can borrow reels, or call your friends or buddies and check them out. And the nice thing about the 7, like I said, there's a lot of reel companies out there. There's some Shimano and Daiwa. These guys have been around forever, but nothing's getting cheaper in today's age. But the 7 reels are really theoretically pretty, cost comparison, and I would say even a little underpriced compared to some of those models. I would see them as, fairly affordable. Is that because they're new or that's just what we got into them?
Yeah, it's kind of what we got into them. So we took the tack right out of the gate that if it we have what we call an upper hand promise to our anglers, and that applies not only to the rods but also to the reel. So if it doesn't make the angler better on the water, it's not going into one of our products. We took that tact with reels as well. You know, our darling in the casting lineup, it was our very first, available to buy reel from Seven, was our GF baitcaster, and it is a graphite frame, graphite side plates, 4 ball bearings, carbon handle, 3 gear ratios. Not really a lot of frills to this reel, but it's easy to tune. It casts a mile. It won't blow up on the angler. Young, old, doesn't matter. Everybody can use this reel out of the box. And people gawk at the fact that there's 4 bearings. Well, to make a good casting reel, you really need 4 bearings. Anything after that is fluff and something to fail. Is there nuances to it? Yeah, our GSC is a 9+1. That's probably the angler that's a little more in tune with what their reel's doing and needs some more of that feedback. But for the guy who's looking to spend $120 on a casting reel that he kind of do it all with, that fit the bill. Part of it too was bearings. Like, I went back to my automotive experience and I'm like, listen, I drive GMs. I know about wheel bearings. Let's put some good ones in our reels right away. Like,
I pull a boat on a trailer. I know all about bearings. So yeah.
So we put Japanese spool bearings in that thing, which made it a sports car. Just those little upgrades, and we've carried that across all of our casting reel options now. Is the Japanese spool bearings and just a high quality bearing everywhere one is needed. It's the little things, but not overdoing it. And it's not a race to the top with bearings. It should be a race quality wise with bearings.
Yeah, the GX is 9.1, I believe, and then we go down to like 6 and 4 on the next 2 series, something like that.
Yeah.
Or 6, 5, 4, 5+1, 4+1, whatever the case is. But I mean, I like to just, when I'm jigging, sometimes let it free like that. But I use the other ones in different situations, and I mean, can barely tell the difference in it.
Yeah. And when we talk about these extra ones, Brian, the GX is the perfect example of putting it where it matters. You get 2 extra bearings underneath your carbon drag stack in that spinning reel. So underneath that carbon drag stack that sits in the little pocket is another machine pocket that 2 little, ball bearings sit in that oscillation shaft rides on. So anytime, you're up in Green Bay and you're fighting big fish and you get a little bit of that sideways pressure on the spool up and down on the oscillation shaft, you're going to have consistent drag performance because it's not rubbing on anything metal on metal. You've got bearings guiding that along. And that's one of the little nuances. A guy like yourself, you'll pick up on that slight difference. A guy who does a lot of rod and hand type fishing, you're going to pick up on that difference where maybe somebody who's not on the water more than, 1 day a week or something isn't going to necessarily feel that, but it's a benefit, especially in today's day and age with the guys out, Minnesota, you hear it constantly, them talking about the water's getting clearer. We're having to make further casts. Brosdahl is always looking for an advantage that way. So ultralight lines, you need that repeat performance out of your drag. And that's what, those extra 2 bearings in a GX gets you. I could talk about those being the two most important bearings in that reel when you talk about finite details.
I wouldn't argue it because I would say the drag is probably my favorite aspect of these reels. I mean, every reel comes with a drag, and some are fine and some suck. Some are decent, but I love the fact that I can hear it, which is probably kind of stupid minimal, but I don't know, I like it. And I mean, you hear it when I set the hook, and I don't keep it super tight, but it does. It works, and with the the 7 logo basically being on the top,
and
being able, it's easy to get a hold of. You're not reaching down in there to grab it. I mean, it's right on there. You can just hit it with your finger and spin it.
Yeah.
So it's an easy adjustment. But the drag has just been phenomenal on these reels, and I love it. And literally, I was out yesterday and probably had 20 walleyes pitching jigs, and every hook set, initial. But it's not. But it was like, you got your drag loose? I'm like, no, it's good. He goes, that was just a solid hook set. You know, I'm like, it's a decent fish, you know, but I'm like, then nothing. And then all of a sudden, you know, wham, it's a sheephead and it's going nuts, you know, or it was a big pike. And it, like you said, that side to side, I'm like, yep, just, I don't have to mess with it. But if I do, it's easy. And you said with your ultralight line, so I've been using a lot of Seaguar PX8, which is a super thin diameter line. And the problem you have with that, which if I can show it on here, is this is all one piece, solid. Yep. So a lot of those thin diameter lines will get stuck. So I'll go to spin and it gets stuck down in there. And I'm like, why is it, you know, you got some resistance and you just got to kind of pop it out. But these it just slides right in there and it's not an issue. It's because it's 18 pounds, but it's like a 2 to 3 pound diameter.
Yeah.
You know, so it's next to nothing, but I don't have that problem with these. It just slides right into that, whatever you call it, the line seat and rock and roll.
Yep. And I can assure you during our test phase, it would have went in there, you know, and that's why we test and vet all these reels, because we ran into that issue where it was getting behind that roller bearing. And that's what time on the water and making sure you're doing your diligence and testing. We built a 16 test lab right in Park Falls. It is right outside the engineering office, right next to our dynamic analyzer for the rods. You know, it's doing our diligence and making sure, you know, if it's not ready, we're not putting it to market, and taking feedback from anglers that are using them and testing them. And, you know, the time on the water ourselves too can tell you a lot. I mean, I was testing a casting reel that's going to be coming out here yesterday. We had a good little weather window, so we went out for some smallies yesterday. I hooked into a tiger muskie. I'm like, yeah, Drake's working pretty good on this one. You know, like just those sort of things. You know, you talk about a big sheephead, like you get a big one of those guys, and it's going to test your gear. You know,
and you run Bago, so you got plenty of them around. There's no doubt about it. And they're all big this year too, for some reason. Like I think they're maybe they're spawning now, but all the ones I've been catching are like 5+ pounds. I'm like, man, go away. But like, what? It's fun. Still fish. You know, it's a little disappointing when you see it, but it doesn't take long when you're walleye fishing to go, I'm pretty sure that's sheephead. You know? But they're fun to catch. They're aggressive and they hit hard. I don't think most people probably realize how much goes in on the back end of any St. Croix or 7 development. Like you said, I know I've done on the prototype and tested the rods out and had, you know, a couple of these reels in hand a year, 2 years before they were even released. You know, you guys take on, I mean, it's 2025. I would imagine you're working on your 2027 or 2028 rod series, you know, right now.
Yep. And we are in the heart of development.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get them pretty developed, you know, 60% away. They're going to go out to anglers. We're going to test them. We're going to run them for months and give feedback on every single rod and every single, you know, technique specific one and send those in. Then you make adjustments. Then they send out some more. And I mean, it's just, and the fact that all of you that work there and these are American made. You guys are all out. There's probably nobody that works at the St. Croix factory that doesn't fish. I can't imagine. I mean, maybe
not really.
very, very, very few. But you all are out using them yourselves. And I've talked to, you know, Ryan Teach a lot, who was engineering with a lot of these things. And every time I say anything, he's like, what was that again? You know, and he's like, boop, writing a note down like, oh, that rod works really good. And I'm like, your power spin, you know, Mojo rod's a great rip and wrap rod. You know, he's like, huh, okay. Let me take some of these bass lines, turn them into some of the walleye things and, you know, and modify things. Take the Legend tournament and turn this into the physics thing because it just makes sense to just modify a grip and have a, you know, an awesome, you know, minnow pinging forward facing rod. So there's just so much that goes into it versus there's a lot of custom rod companies and this and that, but that's just buying blanks that are already, you know, overseas, and then they're just kind of spooling some stuff up on them. And not that they're bad by all means, they're all, you know, to each their own. But and I had Dan on here and we talked about rods and, you know, and the modular form and how they're created and why they, you know, are what they are. I mean, I assume, and what I've seen with the 7 reels is that same type of, you know, engineering and testing is going into it. I've seen some of the test lab where you have these things sitting there, drags pulling on them and spinning for days, I suppose, nonstop to see how many, you know, before they burn out or if they ever do.
Yep. We've got, you know, drag variants too, where you peel off 100 yards of line, at a moderate clip, I'll call it, and you can't have more than like 2 pounds of drag variance, because the guy who's running 6-pound fluoro and is depending on it, you can't have a spike, you can't have a flat spot, you can't have the binding. So all those tests are performed: salt spray, UV, heat chambers, got a freezer back there, bail spring tests. I mean, you name it. Casting reels, thumb bar. We call it the thumper. It's a torture test. It's a 4-pound weight that's just dead weight, and you're activating that thumb bar under load, and then it has to reactivate, lift it back up, and it's got to do it for 200,000 cycles. Like, it takes a little bit. We call it thumper because every time it hits the ground, it's just thump, thump. Yeah. So
200,000. That's a lot. I mean, most people aren't ever going to use their stuff that long or that many times, but that's the idea. It's over deliver, and then therefore we don't have any warranty issues. But you do have a great warranty on these. If heaven forbid something happens, you step on it. I mean, I'm a guide, so my things get used and abused a little bit from clients that just don't know and turn things backwards or bend bails when they or what have you. But I've had a couple that I've sent in, and no questions asked. It was like, here you go. Here's your new one. We get it. These things happen, but I haven't had one just flat out really fail. I mean, it's like a rod. I mean, yeah, you're going to break it when you step on it or shut it in the door, the lid or whatever on your rod locker. Those things all happen. So, but who do you got? So if you've been paying attention to the bass world, folks, you've seen it. Seven's been, and St. Croix has been sponsoring and been the title sponsors of a lot of the Bass Opens. I think maybe even Elite Series one, but it'll brought to you by Seven or whatever. You're making waves. There's a lot of guys using it on the pro level now. Who do you got out there in the bass world? I know you got Wiggins.
Yep.
And
Joey Nania. He's actually with a different rod company, but we weren't going to limit, who was using it. We would never, Brian, we'd have never forced you to throw Seven. We want to earn the place on somebody's boat. So we leave that open for our pro staff, and we're also accepting other people. I mean, I guess on the bass side, Joey, Jesse Wiggins,
John Cruz,
Browning,
Brown.
Joey Nania, John Cruz this year.
Yep.
That's Elite Series angler. That was a big deal for us. John's a great guy, very well respected in the industry. A business owner himself. So the feedback that he's able to, the feedback he's able to provide, it's great, and he's not a St. Croix angler too. So that helps because we know these aren't going just on St. Croix rods. So we got to make sure, believe it or not, there's no standard for a reel foot size. You got to make sure that it's fitting a Sea Guide reel seat and a Fuji reel seat and everybody else's reel seat. Like little stuff like that you don't think about. It's different. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West on the reel side. There's no standard. There's no. You can call it what you want. It's just.
I didn't even think about that. I just thought they were all standard, but I haven't had nothing but St. Croix in my boat for over 10 years, so I wouldn't know any difference at this point.
Yeah. No, there's no standard to any of that. It's let's just say we got an arsenal of things that get tried out, and some guys throwing an Abu, some guys throwing a Daiwa, guys throwing a Shimano, a Luz. Got to make sure all that stuff fits the reel seats right. You don't have any play or slop. The same goes with our reels. Like, it's got to fit in a casting rod, got to fit in a TFO. And Seven's got guys that are running those. So, like I said, we want to earn the place in somebody's boat. And you talk about a guy like John who's making a living fishing. Much like yourself, like stuff's got to perform. So he had him in his hands for a while before we were able to get him on board. But he has to have that faith. So.
Yep. Yeah, people have the pro staffs thing kind of not completely understood and think it's just, hey, somebody's going to throw something at me and I'll take it. But myself, John, and I know Tony Roche, Joe Nelson, Rochaw, a bunch of us walleye guys have been using them for a while. You got Wiesner on the bass side. I think Trey McKinney's on the rods. We get Trey switched over to the reels yet?
Not yet.
So I bet he's got a couple that he's playing with.
He's got a couple yet. Yeah.
Right.
So
But that's
Yep.
it. They got to use these, and I mean, most like anything, I usually use it for at least a year, if not two, of testing it to make sure it's the right fit and that you believe in the product. Which easy, hand down. Dan Johnson brought one of the bait casters and a spinning reel quite a few years ago to the Shields Fishing University. He's like, "Hey, Brent, we got to check this out." So we went fishing, and I'm like, "Let me see it." And I was like, "Oh, yep, I get it. I see what you're talking about. This thing is pretty slick." So
Yeah, and I mean, Dan is sometimes he's in your ear a lot, but he just wants things to be right. Dan is a great guy.
yeah,
Very happy to have the opportunity to work with him. Fishy dude. Like,
very.
he's just vicious, like he gets it. So when he comes to me with feedback, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can understand. And Dan, he's super animated, jazzed
yeah.
up all the time, like high energy. And it's like, okay, but Dan, bring it back in here. Let's talk about this. Let's get it right. It's he's a character. So
He's going to put them to the
yeah.
test. I mean, he's fishing all sorts of different techniques, mainly, bass fishing, but he gets out there and he does some walleye fishing and whatever's biting, crappie as well. But yeah, he knows his stuff and he knows how to match that rod and reel and what size should be on. So he's probably great for helping with those combo developments.
Mm-hmm.
What's on the horizon? We talked about a little bit. ICAST is coming up. Any teasers? We looking for anything new coming out?
Yeah, we've been silent since year one on the saltwater front.
Yep.
So I'd look for a saltwater reel to be coming from Seven this year. And then we have an upgrade coming on the casting reel. That is an exciting piece. I've had a lot of fun with that development. It is a sports car. It's a reasonably priced sports car. That should really perk some ears up on the bass side. Spinning, we've got some combos. Like I mentioned, we got some line extensions coming, I guess you call it, to GXR. So that's going to be exciting. Little more relevant to our world. If you're catching what I'm saying here, that one I'm excited about. That one, that was a project a little bit closer to home. I mean, I'm bass fishing a lot now. Just simply, I have to understand it. So for me to tap into a walleye project, I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do this. I'm all for it. So
Right.
that's a pretty exciting one. And then like we mentioned, we're on a 24 to 30-ish month development cycle with stuff. So we've got 27 product, already in development, and it's going to be a busy year and a half yet for me. We can put it that way. There's a lot going on.
Doesn't slow down.
No. So this year, I would say it's a little bit lighter, but 2 years from now, or year and a half from now, I guess that is going to be a big one. That is going to be a busy one.
Good. We all like new stuff, even though when it's not broke, don't fix it. But it's innovation, and that's the industry, right? You got to keep bringing up something new to the market, and if you're going to make it better, you're going to make it better. So.
Yeah, and that Seven's been a great avenue for us. Everything Seven does is new for us right now.
Right.
So we're learning, we're developing, we're getting little subtle nuances, the things that we like, that we don't like, materials, playing around with that, and having young, eager engineers back in the lab. Like, these guys are whipping up some crazy stuff all the time, rod and reels. Like, they're throwing around acronyms for things. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm not an engineer, but like, is it gonna work? Does it make the angler better? Let's try it, so really, and that's the cool thing about Seven is all the exterior designs, the internal specifications, that's all done in Park Falls. We do it all. We if it's not our own industrial designer in house, we have an industrial designer that's big in the fishing space that does some of these designs. The internal specifications, that's all the internal team. So we spec out what we want the gear material to be, the quality of bearing, the country of origin on the bearings. Every detail is thought out, put into a spreadsheet. look at a bait caster that's got 150 pieces to it. Like, I have to spec out what the screws that hold the side cover are.
Right.
It's time consuming, but it's those details that matter. And then obviously we have manufacturing partners overseas that take that and make it reality. And that's the other part of my job is I go over there and I'm a part of that process. I mean, I was literally just in China and Korea at our manufacturing partners, making sure that these are progressing, the future projects are progressing the way they need to, and it's important that you have these sort of trips and communications because you can do so much more in an 8-hour face-to-face meeting than you can over 1,000 emails.
Oh yeah.
It's but having that and having partners that you can trust, that you can verify, that's huge. That all plays to these products are something that we can put our name on. So
if people want to, I mean, you can see some of these testing and things. You got Customer Appreciation Day coming up in like a month. What is it? Late June?
yeah, 21st. June
21st. That's at
21st.
Park Falls, Wisconsin. So if you've never been there, folks, go to the St. Croix factory or the factory store, basically. But you have all sorts of displays set up that's showing you kind of how some of the rods are made somewhat. I imagine you have some, I think I was there last year for just a little bit, and you had some of the drag testing going on with some of the reels. And then everybody's there. So you and the engineers, and they can answer any question. Are you going to get the inside scoop on that stuff? You're going to get some hellacious deals usually as well. So
Yeah.
where, go ahead.
It's awesome. It's like a family reunion, like you talked about it. I've been a part of quite a few of these now, and it's like, oh, I remember you. Yeah, we talked last year. Now I've got friendships out of the deal. Like, it's the angling community as a whole. Like, there's a lot of really good people that love the fish. So get the opportunity to meet all these people and come together in one spot and learn about the process. Get yourself a deal on a rod and a reel. Like, what could be better? Plus, it's northern Wisconsin. It's beautiful. I mean, there's plenty to do for the rest of the weekend too. So,
yeah, I had a flood in my basement, and I was up there for the Green Bay tournament, so I left, and I'm like, I said I was coming, so I drove up that night. Was there in the morning for like an hour. I'm like, I got to get home because nobody's home, and except the teenage boy. And he's like, I don't want to do all this water. I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way, which worked out because we were able to stop in Minnesota and Wisconsin and pick up fans and stuff. That everything in Sioux Falls was already sold out because we had several days of rain, so it sucked. So I had to cut it short. But I imagine, there's seminars. Roach is probably on the schedule again. Joel Nelson. I mean, there's just a handful.
Yeah.
Roach all usually there.
I think this year we've got a muskie panel, which will be, I think, 4 anglers. I believe Steve Heiding's on there. So that's the last one. Joel Nelson, I believe, is doing a
panfish
walleye seminar.
Oh, walleye.
Rosedal, I know for sure, is coming out. I think he's doing a panfish seminar.
Okay.
We're gonna have Maggie Joel there. She's gonna be running actually the Bassmaster booth. So she's part of that initiative, trying to get more female anglers involved. So we partnered with Bass. She's going to be up there, talking to the female anglers. Got all our engineering tents and everything outside. We really upped the game for kids activities this year. So, like I said, I got a little son, and I said we need more stuff for the kids. So we had a holiday open house, and we actually did lure painting, which worked out really good. So this year we're expanding on that for CAD. So we'll have lure painting for the kids. They can paint up their own blank. We take care of seal coating it and send you out the door with the hardware and everything. Little casting pond and everything for them. We got a casting pond for fly anglers. There's so much. Johnsonville sponsors it. We got, brats and everything for everybody. Trying to think of what else.
Yeah, keep those kids busy so Dad can go play with the rods and reels a little more, right?
Yeah, that was kind of my logic because, my wife and son came through and he was all over me. I'm like, dude, I'm working.
Yeah,
I'm working right now. We need something for you to do. It's good. It's a good family event. Like I said, it's just nice to get everybody together and see a little bit of the operation and some of what goes into, the testing of the reels and also the rods. I mean, people don't realize how handmade they are, and this gives you a
Yeah.
glimpse of that.
Yes, they are. Where can people find the 7 reels looking to buy them?
Yeah, so right through sevenreels.com, or come up to our factory store in Park Falls or one of our 400 independent retailers across the country. We're in a lot of small shops. If you're looking to get one in your hand and play with it, I'd recommend that. I'd also recommend, Tackle Warehouse has them, Omnia has them. Our friends of the North, Sail in Canada, they're our biggest retail partner up in Canada. Shields is carrying them. Shields has been a really big supporter. They've got a great team, great fishing team over there, providing feedback too. So Shields, definitely check them out. Yeah, 7reels.com. That'll give you all the basics. If you want to look and explore some of our models, start there. We've got a really, really nice website, well laid out, and part of what we do, this from St. Croix, is angler education. So we've got QR codes linking guys to how to tune their bait caster, because we've got the varying levels, just magnets, centrifugal. It's all right there. So guys can walk through, learn a little bit more about their reel. Yeah.
Awesome. You
Hey folks, Brian Short here with Clean Cut Cutting Boards. This thing is awesome. I always carry one along with me in the truck for days like today where I find myself just getting off the water. We got a couple, nice walleyes that we kept to eat for tonight. And the fish cleaning station is broke down, or a lot of times early spring and in the fall they're closed, right? A lot of places people don't have fish cleaning stations, or whether you're somewhere really remote, you're back at your cabin or your camper, you find yourself after a good day of fishing, you got some fish to clean, and you don't have anywhere to do it. I always have this Clean Cut in the back of my truck, ready to go anywhere. That's what's awesome about them. They come in 2 different sizes, a variety of colors to meet your needs. These things are just all-purpose and on the go. You can flip this thing over, and if you're having a big gathering or something, it's basically got a big bowl on the back to put your pulled pork in it. You can make a vegetable tray, whatever it may be. It is more than just a cutting station. It is a very, very versatile, durable unit made by Rufflin Kennels. So check them out over at rufflinkennels.com for the Clean Cut Cutting Station. Try it out. I guarantee you're going to love it like I do.
touched on it earlier when we started. You're at the old family cabin area on Bago, and you had from what I saw, was pretty much a beautiful day yesterday to be out testing some reels and rods.
Yeah.
They had a little head-to-head was on TV, and Joe Okada crushed them. Looked like a pretty good bug hatch. But for a bass guy like yourself, you're good to go. There's bass all over that place, but you're also in a pretty healthy walleye fishery.
Yeah. I grew up walleye and muskie fishing. Not much of a troller. I do it, so a lot of rod in hand, but you look at Winnebago, I mean, spoiled. You can catch fish any way you want to catch. If you want to catch fish in a river, you can do it on Winnebago system. You want to catch fish, you can win a tournament slip bobbering over a reef, with 300 other boats in Otter Street. Like, it's crazy. However you want to do it, you can do it. And I think growing up and fishing Winnebago for, call it 70% of my life to this point, I learned so much just because I could. I could go pull harnesses over the mud. I could do that. I learned what a bug hatch did to fish, how they react, how I had to change my tactics. I learned that walleyes will go way shallower than anybody ever expected.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think they're catching them in like 2 foot of water yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
I mean, and it sounds like it's pretty clean too. I don't. You got some zebra mussels moved into there now.
Yeah. That changed a little bit. I mean, thank God it's a mud bowl to begin with. I mean, it's 21 feet deep. It whips up. It gets muddy. But yeah, I mean, that lake. I started off on the east shore of Winnebago growing up, and then my parents moved over here maybe like 12 years ago to to the west side, and I mean, you walk out on their pier now, like 4 feet of water, and you can see bottom on a good calm, 2-day stretch. And then you get a day like today where it's blowing out of the southeast, and it's
It doesn't take long.
yeah, it's chocolate milk out there,
Yeah, that east
But-
shoreline's always pretty clean, pretty rocky and what have
Yeah.
you, but it's,
Yeah.
across the lake. But you also, what I love about it is just what we touched on earlier, it's so diverse. You got the chain of lakes, right? Butte-Moore, Poygan, the river aspect of it, which I love to fish rivers. So you got pretty much everything that encompasses a river right there.
Mhm.
And with just a plethora of multi-species, but you could pull flies, you could pull bouncers, you can pull three-ways, you can troll, you can slip bobber, you can jig, you can cast cranks. It doesn't matter. You can be fishing for bass and catching walleye or vice versa.
Mhm.
And you can go way up the lakes and fish weeds and reeds, or you can go out in the 25-foot and pull crawler horses and clean, clear blue water, in midsummer. But you have a lot of fly hatches on that system.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so much so that they show up on the radar, and then everybody around the lake that week really is terrible. But I've been out there, and some of my best days, like in May, pulling a hornet just on the edge of a rock pile, just before it gets to the soft bottom where those bugs are coming up, and you've got the lake fly, hulls sitting on the top of the water, and your boat is just greasy and disgusting. But the fish are just snapping. You can't breathe. You got your face mask on, and you're eating bugs for breakfast. But like, some of my best days have come during that, and like, it took a while to figure out how to get them to chew with that much to eat. But I learned.
When
and then
they're
the next
eating,
day, I went and I pitched pillars in the river and caught them. That's unique with this system, I think, is just how diverse it is.
It's like mayflies. People say, mayfly hatches happen and don't go fishing. I'm like, no, I'm going. A little salmon high in the water column, I'm catching. The fish are feeding, and I know where they're going to be feeding, and I can catch them, or a really small, night crawler that looks like a mayfly larva, basically coming up through the, just get that stuff up, or go where they're at, and maybe it's shallow and you can fish it on the bottom. But the bug actually don't scare me, but I can recall at least 2 or 3 times I've gotten off the water at Bago and had to go wash the boat.
Yep.
The bugs are bad. And then anytime you sat down, you just squished them, on your back and your seat and your back of your shirt's just covered in little tiny black dots and your motor's just filthy. I'm like, okay. And then the next day it's all gone.
Yep.
Just
that's I worked at a supper club on the water on the East Shore, Jim and Linda's. Pretty famous supper club over here. Growing up, I think I started there when I was like 14. And man, did I hate going to work and coming out of work on those strong west winds and like, I don't know. It just seems like they were attracted to white vehicles too. And I had a white Ford Explorer that turned like this light gray, dark black color, like just depending on how many were sitting on it. It's, you just get good with a shop vac for all the ones that got trapped in there when you open the door. It's something. But yeah, really fortunate. Now exploring this for bass too has been fun. I come down here and I'll go out for a couple hours and just try some stuff, and it's amazing. Yeah. Oh, there's bass in here with these walleyes. Like, you'd have the accidental catches, but when you're targeting them, man, this is a great smallmouth and largemouth fishery.
Yeah,
so
I know the walleye guys were catching some smallies yesterday, and I've got a few largemouth there. I've definitely got some smallies, and I've seen some floating. There was a fish kill a few years ago. I'm like, oh, that's a big largemouth floating by, and there goes a big walleye floating by. But that place gets. I remember I first went there, and it was like on a weekday. I think I started practice for a tournament on a Friday or Saturday, so it was, hundreds of boats a day out there this time of year. Just probably all the time. I'm like, wow. Well, it's the weekend. Nope. Come Monday, Tuesday, I'm like, it's still hundreds of boats. Does nobody have to go to work in Wisconsin, or are we all third shift? What are we doing? Because this place is busy. And you can say you can have 100 boats on a reef and you're still catching them.
Yep. I thought the same thing. And I was the guy out there, and I'm like, does nobody go to work? And it's like, well, I should be at work, but it was just, so
Too nice.
it's I mean, we got a lot of good access to the lake.
Yeah.
Nobody really has to drive more than 10, 15 miles from their home to get to a good launch. My parents have a really shallow launch here, and then Black Wolf. That's one I was,
Yeah, Black Wolf. Yep.
had the brain fart on when
Yep.
I was a little nervous at the start of this. But yeah, Black Wolf up there, that's a mecca for guys because that puts you right by all the reefs.
Yep.
That it's good. I do miss it sometimes living in northern Wisconsin, like that big water aspect of
Yeah.
Winnebago. Like I miss some of that, but I've been hitting up Schwamigan Bay a little bit for smallmouth, some walleyes too. You get that big water feel out there for sure, but it's still a little bit of a hike for us. But I mean, gosh, I live amongst 3,000 lakes. Like
Yeah, it's
I,
tough.
I
Tough
put
gig.
I put an app on my phone, like a randomizer, and you put like 15 lakes in and just hit the button, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna try this one today. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's hard to be. I love the Bago. I know a lot of tournament guys don't like the Bago system for whatever reason, and there's a ton of tournaments there. But it's probably because of the forage base. It fluctuates so much with the year class of fish because it gets so much pressure. And then it may be, it's really down right now. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's recovered and it's fishing great. But you're a high populated area somewhat, and it gets hit hard and probably take out a lot of those fish. But it seems to do well. I like going there for the diversity of it, the fact that you can fish however you want to fish, which is usually what the key is on any, where I say that's Devil's Lake, one of my favorite lakes. Bago's one of my favorite lakes. Missouri River is because it's not one dimensional. It's not a open water trolling thing, or it's not a whatever it may be, a Lindy rig and a slip bobber, Mille Lacs, super crystal clear water type thing. Of course, forward facing sonar, that's it. That's the new fishing style. So that doesn't matter where you go, but I'm going to do this, but yeah, anywho, yeah, love it. Love Bago. It is definitely a crowded place, but like I said, it's a big system. It's not to just jump in the river and go up a river, up a lake, and there may not be hardly anybody there, but I can guarantee you there's fish there.
Yep.
Or you can, it's not hard to get away from a crowd, and there's dozens, there might be hundreds of reefs around the place.
Yep.
So, if one long reef's got 50 boats, go find the other one. I guarantee you there's going to be fish on it sometime throughout the day. So
yeah. I mean, really, there's a lot of guys that do very well out here that are fishing very small reefs, and they're fishing 40 of them in a day. They're especially with forward facing now. You pull up, if those fish are going to be there or not, and move on. But yeah, my dad's got a nice little milk run of spots right out here in front of the house that he just wants to go catch a few fish. We got our good for two spots. Pull up, catch two, move on to the next one, and that's nice. That's to have that at your fingertips and to be able to do. I mean, my dad's neighbor here, like he's a legend on the Winnebago system. That guy, I swear, he can catch them wherever he wants to, doing whatever he wants to. Nice as they come. Just retired. I'll give him a shout out. He's a great guy, but man, can that guy catch some fish out here? He's just it seems like he's always on them. It's impressive.
I bet he couldn't wait to retire so he can be on them even more. So that's the one place that I wouldn't mind living on Bago, on one of those lake houses. There's some real nice houses on over where you're at and the other side. And I'm like, you got your own docks, and otherwise they're, like you said, a boat ramp's just minutes away, and when it's nice, it's nice. But like anywhere, when the wind's howling, I'm in South Dakota, the wind's blowing all the time, especially today. So, but Bago can easy access and good fishing. So, well, Rob, thanks for your time. We'll wrap this up. Boy, I need more coffee today. The throat's clogging up on me. You want to leave our listeners with a tip, anything to help them on their angling journey. You fish plenty. You got plenty of fishing experience, or it could be product information. So any advice?
Yeah. Probably a piece of advice that was given to me a long time ago would be to just fish your fish. It plays into what you talked about. Like you're able to come out to Winnebago and fish the way you want to fish. Fish the way you want to fish. Get yourself a little uncomfortable sometimes, and you're going to leave the water every time a better angler. Like that for me, every trip I learn a little something. I feel I didn't necessarily better myself if I didn't learn a little something. Maybe it's a nuance to how you're presenting a bait, or maybe it's just how fish set up in a certain wind given this structure situation. To me, that's probably the reason I keep fishing, is because you're challenging yourself, you're learning, push yourself a little bit, but fish your fish and fish the way you want to fish, and you're gonna have fun on the water every single time.
Excellent. Right on. I couldn't agree more. I know Brett King always used to, in talking with him, he'd just say, just watch your own bobber. Don't worry about how they're fishing. Just fish how you want to fish. Do your thing. Just watch your own bobber.
Yeah.
True,
exactly.
True, man. Well said. True. So yeah, you're right. Fish your fish. I get people that'll, hey, I'm catching them here doing this and that. I'm like, that's great. Not saying I'm not going to go look or experience it, but I'm always like, cool. That doesn't work for me. I got to figure it out. I have to do it.
Yep.
Do it my way. I just can't. You can give me a waypoint and say you're catching them doing this, and I can roll over there, and I'm probably not going to catch them doing what you were doing. It just never works for me. I'm like, I got to do it. I got to figure it out myself. I mean, thanks for the info.
Yep.
90% of the time it probably doesn't work, but maybe 10 it does. So I don't know, but you're 100% right.
Right. I'm right there with you. Like, they could be doing something just subtly different, and that's the difference. So fish your fish, and it'll work out.
Yep. You are right on for sure. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Robert Woods, product manager. I keep wanting to say project. It is a project, but it's a product manager with 7 Reels. So
yeah,
I used to be a project manager for all sorts of stuff. So it always comes up with the product manager for 7 Reels, created by St. Croix rods. Check them out at 7reels.com. And at some Shield stores have them, and he listed a whole lot of places. We'll drop some links down here below. So thanks for your time, Robert. I know you got to get back to work, or if it wasn't blowing like hell, you're probably going to get it back out there on the lake today and go chase around some bass and some walleye. I'm sure that's in the future sometime today. So
it is.
So, definitely. Just that's what everybody that works at the Safe Croix factory should be doing. We can't have you all taking days off when it's nice out because we won't keep up with the production, but rotate that around. I know they take care of you guys well. So it's probably a mandatory checkbox, I imagine, on your time off request is it, sick, family, but fishing.
Fishing
probably gets checked more than anything. So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in and listening to this episode of Real Talk Fishing with No Limits. Once again, product manager with 7 Reels. Check them out down below here, 7reels.com. And thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the water.